Your webinar chat is lit up with fiery emojis and this was amazing. But then you go to your phone and open up Stripe and realize you closed 5% of the room or nobody bought at all. Why? Because great feedback doesn't equal great sales. In the AI era, information is cheap and easy to find. So what sells is interpretation, retention, and transformation. If you don't have me feeling transformed after this experience, why would I pay you for another one? So in this video, you're gonna learn how to turn attendees into clients so that people don't just love your content, but they buy because of it. By the way, I'm Darrell Williams Jr., and for over a decade, I've been helping people win through teaching. Not only am I an award-winning educator and speaker, but I'm also the founder of Monetize Your Expertise, which is how I help other business owners have massive impact and income through mastering the art and science of teaching. And you do know what year it is, right? Like, nobody is surprised or thrown off by the fact that there's going to be a pitch at the end of your webinar. As a matter of fact, they're expecting it. They most likely joined your free masterclass or webinar or training because they clearly see that you would have the solution to their problem. And they're just evaluating to see if you're the one that's going to be able to teach them to transformation. And just to ease your anxiety a little bit, they want to buy from you. If you can demonstrate that you can teach them and that the value that you provide in your offer is worth the money that they have to invest, they would gladly buy from you. But when they don't buy, how often do we think that the issue is the price and not our ability to teach? Right now, it's easier than ever to find information. Anyone can type exactly what they want into ChatGPT, Perplexity, Claude, and get all the information for free. So why would people pay you to find information that they can find on their own? Spoiler alert, they won't. But people will pay you to take them from where they are to where they want to be. And that's the transformation that you have to demonstrate before they make a buying decision. And if you think you're doing that already, let me just pause and let you know that just because you talked about it doesn't mean you taught about it. And I know that might not be the most grammatically correct way to say that, but it rhymes and that matters, which I'll talk about in a second. So the real reason why your webinars get applause but no sales is because of retention. And not viewer retention, but information retention. If they can't remember it, they can't apply it. If they can't apply it, they can't transform. And transformation creates trust. Trust creates traction, which means they'll stick with you longer to see what else you can teach them. Stay with me. In the next few minutes, I'll give you 3 retention moves that you can use that make learning stick. That's what leads to results, which leads to revenue and renewals and referrals, which leads to more results, which leads to more revenue and renewals and referrals and results. You get the picture. So here's how to create that feeling on your very next presentation. Move number 1 is chunking. Reduce the overwhelm and raise the retention. If the brain is tied up, learning shuts down. Stick with me. Neuroimaging and neuroscience studies show that when overwhelmed by excessive stimuli, the prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for attention and decision-making, becomes overtaxed, slowing processing speed and impairing function. Basically, what that means is when too much information is shared with us, we can't process it or make the decision to buy from you. This same principle is the reason why nobody takes a fork and goes directly to the buffet. No, they take what they want and put it on their plate, go back to their seat and eat it, and they go back to the buffet bar if they want some more. What I'm saying is stop serving 90-minute buffet style webinars and start serving courses and start serving plates. Use chunking, teach in bite-sized chunks that the brain can actually hold. What if we were to try this? Take your webinar and break it into 3 separate chunks. Now, each chunk has a specific idea, action, or learning objective. Teach this for just a couple of minutes, 4 to 5 minutes or so, and then pause for reflection or it's something that they need to take action on right now. Once you close the loop and achieve the learning objective of that chunk, then move on to the next one. The real reason why this works is because the brain needs boundaries. Boundaries creates focus and focus creates memory. So if you want a real quick checklist just to make sure you got the chunking thing down, here's simply how I would put it. Teach 1 idea per chunk, have 1 action per chunk, and have 1 line that sums up the whole chunk, which we like to call a sticky statement. Sticky statements are actually move number 2. Now, if you're already hearing the difference, I host a free workshop called Turn Small Audiences into Big Revenue. We go deeper into the art and science of teaching so that your teaching does the selling and you make a bigger impact in your clients' lives. The link is in the description and the pinned comment if you want to join us. So as I mentioned, move number 2 is make sticky statements. The goal here is to make it memorable in just one line. People don't just remember what you taught, they remember the line that they repeat to themselves. So create sticky statements that are short, concrete, often rhythmic lines that compress the point. You're already familiar with so many sticky statements. Here's some examples that you may know. Roy G. Biv, to remember the colors of the rainbow: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. Right? My daughter says it all the time. Or what about PEMDAS? Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, right? Or what about 30 days had September, April, June, and November, right? To remember which months have 30 days, which months have 31, and February that has 28. These are called mnemonic devices, or techniques used to store and recall information. The purpose is to make it easier for the brain to retain and retrieve that information, making it easier to organize and access later. Here's how you would apply it. Write one sticky statement for each chunk. Use alliteration or rhyme or imagery or an acronym. And then you can take that sticky statement and put it at the beginning of the chunk to really prime the attention. You may have noticed a few sticky statements in this video already. When the brain is tied up, learning shuts down, right? I practice what I teach. Another way that you can use it is to drop it at the end of a story to really cement the lesson, which just so happens to take us into move number 3, which is storytelling. The reason why storytelling helps with retention is because emotion tags memory. If you think about some of the greatest and worst experiences that you've ever had in life, you can almost feel that emotion that you have tied to it just by channeling it in your memory. That's because emotion is such a strong trigger for retention. If they don't feel it, they won't remember it. And if they won't remember it, they won't do it. And if they won't do it, watch this. They'll say that what you suggested doesn't work, which hurts future sales. So here's why storytelling works. Storytelling is the oldest retention tool that we have. Even Jesus used parables or stories as a retention strategy. Now, stories can be used for engagement or retention, but here's how I know that Jesus used it as a retention strategy. Thousands of people would travel from all over to come listen to Jesus for hours and hours, sometimes even forgetting to eat, right? Which means he didn't have a problem with engagement. The reason why he used stories or parables is because he wanted people to remember what he was saying. That's retention. He needed people to be able to retain and apply that information even thousands of years later. So here are 2 different types of stories that I would recommend. One is a micro case study. This is just about 60 to 90 seconds, but it follows a very clear story arc. Once you master this clear story arc, it really helps the listener be able to see themselves in your story and envision themselves experiencing the transformation that you promised that they would experience. The story arc of a micro case study goes just like this. You start with tension that leads to a decision that then turns into an outcome that is followed up by a principle. A quick example of this would be, I was doing everything that everybody taught me to do and getting people to come on my webinars, but for some reason, they weren't buying from me. And I was super frustrated and on the verge of giving up my whole business and just throwing it all away. But I decided that I was going to focus on teaching the information in such a way that they could actually experience the transformation before I went to pitch the sale. What ended up happening when I made that quick shift is that more people started buying from me and my business grew. The lesson that I learned is that if what you sell is expertise, you can't scale if you can't teach. Were you able to follow along the story arc from tension to decision to outcome to principle? And that was a true story, by the way, which is another thing that I always like to mention when we're talking about storytelling. Tell true stories. Don't just make things up to get people to agree with you and feel emotion, but tell true, accurate stories that have either happened to you or somebody else, unless you call out the fact that this is a fictitious story or a fable. The next type of story is creating a story about an everyday analogy that anchor complex ideas into real life. Kind of like the buffet example that I gave earlier. It's very complex to think about the neuroscience and neuroimaging and the prefrontal cortex and all the things of what happens that when the brain gets tied up, then it shuts down, which is why I use an example of just a buffet. We've all experienced going to a buffet, and it's accurate that nobody takes a fork and goes up to the buffet bar. Rather, they take the plate of food that they can manage and they go sit down and eat it. That was a great analogy to use to allow people to see, Oh, so when the brain is overwhelmed, if I'm teaching too much or giving too much information, then that's the reason why people can't process it. By making it relevant to something that we've all experienced in real life, it makes it easier for the viewer to understand, and things that are easy to understand are easy to remember. That's retention. So we'll get to the recap in a second, but do you feel the difference? Do you see the intentionality that goes into teaching for transformation? You didn't just hear it, you experienced it. See, the goal is not to just dump everything you know. The goal is to design micro transformations. Attendees are evaluating one thing: did I experience a transformation in how I think, decide, or act? If the answer is yes, they begin to trust you to take them to more transformative experiences. Teaching that transforms before the pitch reduces the need to be salesy after, because your attendees already felt the shift. And the natural next step is to see how else you can help them. Trust is earned at the moment of transformation. Again, transformation creates trust, and trust creates traction, which means they'll stick around to grow with you. So here we go. Screenshot this. Move number one is chunking. Reduce the overwhelm by giving one idea, one action, one lesson objective outcome. Move number two, incorporate sticky statements, which are the one-liners that they can repeat tomorrow. And move number three is incorporating storytelling. Emotion tags memory. Memory drives action. Action drives transformation. So if this shifted the way that you think about teaching as an entrepreneur, imagine what happens when you master the full art and science of teaching. I break it all down live in my free workshop, turning small audiences into big revenue while making a bigger impact in your clients' lives. We'll find your teaching gap, build repeatable frameworks, and adopt systems for sustainability. Seats are free. Links are in the description and the pinned comment. Make no mistake, AI can give your audience more information, but it can't give them transformation. That's your lane. Own it. You've got this, and I've got you.